Hello everyone, this is my teaching memo for Module 2. All the snow we got 2 weeks ago is gone. Dr. Laura and I were able to walk on the rail trail 2 days last week, which we love to do. We get to process a lot of quote-unquote stuff. Because I'm not a big basketball or hockey fan, I will have to wait until April to get excited about one of my teams. Reminder that Valentine's Day will be upon us on Thursday. I have been reminded of that myself. Little housekeeping. There was a glitch in the CNS Salvia et al. Quiz. The answer in question 4 was incorrect. I regraded it Sunday afternoon. If you got it correct the first time, you received credit. Also, the answer for question 6 was only one word. Several of you put 2 words, which were both correct, but the quiz, being computer-based, only accepted 1 word. If you put 2 words and you think they were correct, email me and I will regrade it. The assessment literacy discussion board is officially closed and you can no longer comment. I was impressed with the amount of participation in the posting throughout the 2 weeks of Module 1 and 2 in all 3 sections. As of Sunday afternoon, there were over 650 posts for all 3 sections. So that's incredible. According to the rubric, you need to cite a source in at least 4 of your 5 responses for an A or 5 of your 9 responses for an A+ in that rubric category. I want to encourage conversation, but I also want you to apply what you are learning or go deeper by sharing new information. Try to avoid quote-unquote I like or quote-unquote I agree kinds of posts, unless of course you explain why you agree and then support it with evidence. So just those posts don't really help you in the grading area. I also would suggest to maximize your learning in the course. Search for my comments in the discussion boards and take a crack at responding. It doesn't, you can type in my last name in the search box that's at the bottom of the discussion board instructions, and it will list all of my posts. And then you can pick and choose ones you find interesting, disagree with, want to respond to. And then we get into a great conversation. Many of you have done that already, and they have been very, very productive. So kudos to all of you that have done that. Don't be a hit-and-run DBer. Use the discussions to advance your understanding and knowledge of the assessment process. You can also challenge me with thought-provoking questions. I also want to remind you all that you receive points for making your initial post early in the session. And the reason for that is so we can get involved more. If you wait until Sunday night, I go to bed at 10, and many of you will be posting after 10 o'clock. So I don't get to see those, interact with those until I grade them. So that's why I try to get people on early so we can have a great conversation. So it doesn't pay to wait. Finally, look at the session objectives in the session folder and make sure you feel comfortable that you've mastered them. They are in the overview section. A couple of helpful hints. If you want to know how many posts you've made, and I got a couple emails on that, without scrolling through all of them and counting them, which in my opinion is a pain, type your name in the search box at the bottom of the discussion boards like I just explained by putting my name in. Put your last name in. Only your posts will be displayed and you will see them. You can count them. Also, as you make posts throughout the course of the 2 modules, click on the unread button and then you'll only see posts that you haven't read yet. And as you read them, if you don't want to respond to them, you can click on the dark circle and they won't come up again in the unread when you press the unread button. So it's a shortcut for scrolling. I find it very helpful. Okay, Module 1 and 2 assignments, as I mentioned, the ALDB is now closed. I'll be grading it this week. For your information, each discussion board, as well as the double entry journals, your first will be coming up, will increase in weight as the course goes on. This is a grading system that accounts for your use of feedback as the course continues. So by the end, your last discussion board, which will be carry the most weight, you should be an expert discussion boarder by that point. I have made comments on your initial baseline survey and your initial discussion board posts. When you check your grade, you will see a feedback button in the upper right corner. Click on that, and you should be able to see the comments that I made directly on your document. For your initial post, for the most part, I just commented on your APA. The last two sections of discussion board was an introductory one where pretty much anything assessment-wise was fair game. Many of you mentioned such hot topics as teaching to the test, using assessment results to evaluate teachers and promote students, the use of formative assessments, pre-K assessments, and your aversion to or support of the large-scale standardized testing process, which we will investigate later on. Many of you took the time to share some very helpful websites. That's what gets me excited about teaching this course. I become the head learner. Here are some that I found interesting and worth sharing. New Teachers, a primer on assessment, was shared by Amanda in 64020. 20 assessment strategies you can use every day. Heather shared that, 64020. True or false, opting out could mean big problems for your child at school. So this article kind of shatters some of the myths about opting out. Effie shared that in 64020. Teaching preschoolers to self-assess their choices in pre-K. I shared this with a couple of people. And thank you, Candida, in 64022 for sharing that. And the last one is making cooperative learning powerful, which Gabby shared. And because I like that because cooperative learning is often misused and abused. People put kids in group and let them have at it and expect that great things will happen without knowing how to do cooperative learning correctly. Remember, just adding a link and asking us to check it out is not what I'm promoting here. Use your link to support your comments. This will pique our curiosity, and there's a much better chance we will read or click on it. Plus, it counts for citing information in your response posts. In the second half of the discussion board, I added a teaching memo post, which was more in line with the second module's topic, special education assessment. I was happy to see many of you take a shot at my query. Some of you sided with Jane, and most realized she went too far. I would recommend downloading the Lavoie 2008 article about advocating for your kids without getting in trouble. If Jane were my teacher, she would have received a counseling letter for what she did. It's a good thing to fight for your kids, but there is also protocol one needs to follow. Undermining your boss is not on that list. Many of you mentioned formative assessments. I'm sharing an off-cited article in the written portion of the teaching memo outlining the power of formative assessment, and there's also a follow-up to that in which the authors mentioned 3 issues they found with current assessment practice. 1, the assessment methods that teachers use are not effective in promoting good learning. 2, grading practices tend to emphasize competition rather than personal improvement. And 3, assessment feedback often has a negative impact, particularly on low-achieving students who are led to believe that they lack ability and so are not able to learn. So they're not saying don't give feedback, it's the kind of feedback that has that negative impact. The most commonly used form of assessment in my experience is the exit ticket. And there's a great article by Bob Marzano, I've got a link to it in my teaching memo, located at the bottom of Module 2 in the section labeled Bonus Material to Make You a Better Teacher. I've added this section to other modules as well. I would recommend checking these out, but only if you want to become a better teacher. I will try to highlight a few exemplary posts in the coming teaching memo, so do not feel ignored if you shared something wonderful and I didn't mention it. There are way too many good posts for me to document here. That's it for this teaching memo. Make sure you watch my assignment video that's in Module 3.